Good morning, brethren.
Good morning.
Well, I found out about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago that I was going to be up here presenting. It sounded like the Grand Lodge officers from the Grand Lodge of Ohio were going to be kind of busy today, and you know, Grand Masters, they don't like to stand around and talk a whole lot, so they asked me to put together something and come out here and talk about what we're doing in Iowa. And one thing we've done in the past probably 10 years is we've used these videos called Pulling Together. They're Simple Truths videos. And the first one I want to play for you is one I played before our Grand Master area meetings this past year. It's called Pulling Together.
Oops, wrong button.
And these videos are available through simpletruths.com, and you can go online and pick them up there, and there are many different ones. This one I like because you can associate a lot of things that happen in the video with Freemasonry, you know, especially with the, you know, pulling together and working together and making your lodge stronger, or, you know, brothers helping brothers, you know, if one brother is hurt, sick, or whatever. And it teaches a lesson that we stick together and help each other out, no matter what, whether it's a tough time or not. The focus of my presentation today is meeting the needs of Iowa Masons. And to give you a little bit of background about it, we have to go back to our secretary of our conference, Don Mosier. During his year as Grand Master, he came up with, in his remarks to the craft, when these men said they wanted more mentoring, they were not referring to just degree practices or ritual study. They were asking to learn about the fraternity. They were asking for mentoring in Masonic history, Masonic traditions, Masonic courtesy, Masonic customs, and Masonic law or jurisprudence. They wanted to know more about the fraternity. And why did they want to know about that? So they could truly feel that they were part of something larger than themselves. They didn't want to just belong to something. They wanted to be a part of it. And my brethren, that is what the fraternity is all about. That is exactly what we advertise. That is exactly what we promise. And that is exactly what we deliver. Through these new Mason forums that we created that year that the Grand Master came up with, this is a brief agenda of what we went through. He, the Grand Secretary and the Chairman of Division of Reference, and for those of you who are not familiar with Iowa, every other jurisdiction does it similar. In Iowa, we do it right. Our Chairman of Division of Reference is the incoming Grand Master, so it's similar to your Deputy Grand Masters in other jurisdictions. Our Deputy Grand Master in Iowa is kind of like a right-hand man who's there to take care of everything for the Grand Master that needs to be done. It's kind of a handful there to keep an eye on all your Grand Lodge officers, so that's his job basically that year. So they set out, went across the state in different parts of the jurisdiction, and they had a registration social time. And this is even crazy here. The Grand Secretary would show up early and prepare a meal for everybody coming that evening. Generally, it was like a baked steak dinner or a chicken fried steak or something like that. And they had a nice meal beforehand, and then a little socialization and a welcome from the Grand Master. And they talked about Ashler Awards, the Master Build Awards, Lodge of the Year. That was brought up by the Grand Secretary, and they talked about, and then they talked about what resources were available, and they asked a lot of questions to these new Masons, and what they considered a new Mason was somebody who had been a Mason 14 months or less. Then they had these breakout discussions over several topics about what brought you to Freemasonry, and you guys can read down them. And while they were talking to him, they found it was interesting because a few months later, we went out and had the same types of meetings with the members that had been members for a long time and considered themselves mentors in Masonry. So what the answers they came up with from these general discussions were, they wanted more lodge activities.
Somebody get ahead of you?
Way ahead of me.
Okay. Let's see if I can back up.
There you go.
One more, huh?
There you go. Yeah. More lodge activities, Masonic mentoring, shorter business meetings. They really didn't want to show up to a lodge and sit there and listen to the secretary read all the minutes and then discuss the bills and everything. One thing we've always talked about, you know, they were wanting to get together and have family activities. They wanted to go out to dinner and do things together, going to races or ball games, or maybe instead of having a meeting at the lodge. Okay, Jack.
Let me put in one little anecdote during this. The Grandmaster, Don Mosher, held one of these in Dubuque, and one of the young guys that attended said that we talked about mentoring. I think all the jurisdictions here talk about mentoring. And he said, Jack Butler was my mentor. And I learned a lot with Jack Butler as my mentor, and of course I'm feeling pretty good about this. But he said, I learned a whole lot more being someone's mentor than I ever learned from him. Okay? And I think that's one of the things that you need to think about. Although in my mind, I have done a fabulous job as a Masonic mentor. He didn't really get all of that stuff really ingrained in him until he took on the role of mentor. And I think when we're talking about mentoring, and this came out during that meeting, now a couple other people from Dubuque thought that what he was saying was somewhat negative and insulting. And you know, the video that Craig just showed about the geese saying things that were positive, I took what he said was positive from the standpoint is that he got it. He finally understood it. I'd given him all that I could, but he made it real clear. All the mentoring I gave him was not nearly as good, not nearly as valuable as him being able to mentor a new person himself. And I think that this came out of these particular meetings, was one of them, for me at least, that really hit home. And I think as we go through all of these, I would encourage you to think about how does this work in your lodge or some of the lodges you're familiar with? How does it work for you personally? I know Don got a smile out of it when he said, you know, Jack Butler was my mentor and I learned a lot, but not nearly as much as I learned doing it myself. So it was one of those things. I just wanted to kind of add a little bit of personality to that. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah. And it's kind of nice having Jack and Don here also. They can add lib to this. This was, you know, a few years ago. But that was it, mentoring. Most of the young people coming into Masonry today in Iowa are in the 30 to 40-year-old range. So their expectations when they joined the fraternity were a lot higher because they went and done the research through the internet, and they were wanting education. They wanted to learn more about Masonry, and these are the things that they wanted out of Masonry. And I find it in my own lodge, most of the officers in our lodge are in their early 40s, late 30s now, and it's even different from 10 years ago when I showed up in lodge and we were more of a ritual lodge. Now we're more of a social lodge, and we go out and we do a lot of different activities outside the lodge instead of having everything inside the lodge. All right, the follow-up meetings we had in the fall were the membership retention meetings, which we went out and talked to the membership and asked them their views on what they thought about these same topics and how they thought our mentoring was going and where we were going with our mentoring. And we found out that most Masons don't know how to mentor. It's really kind of strange, but they don't. But some people mentor and they don't even know it. So what we learned when we were growing up, you know, with the one-on-one catechism where you got together with one brother as you're coming up through the receiving your degrees and you're memorizing the obligations and everything. In Iowa, we no longer have that catechism in Iowa. We have what we call the Enlightenment course, and we basically have changed the way that you become proficient in Iowa, and that's by you have to complete an Enlightenment course, which has, each degree has about 30, 40 pages in it, and then there's an answers and review with you and your mentor. And this is a system that the Grand Lodge of England is actually looking at. They've been in contact with the Grand Lodge of Iowa about our success and failures with it. One thing we found out with this is that the new Masons don't pick up the ritual quite as fast, so they're not learning the ritual, and they're not learning the intimacies or the what do I want to call it?
Cipher ritual that doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the nuances of Masonry and exactly what Masonry is all about. So, but we also in there that they have to work with a mentor and they have to understand the first degree, and they must know the modes of recognition and other little generalities like that, and prepare them so that they can, if they go to visit a different jurisdiction, that they can pass the test oath and get in if they want to come visit. But at these meetings, the old members we talked about membership statistics and demits and suspensions and open discussion, and the answers that we got from them compared to what we got from the new members were really similar, but come in a different form. The new members, where they wanted education and everything like that, the old Masons, they weren't sure how to provide that to them. So with that being known, we had to set up a process to where we could start educating our members. And the first process started back during Don Mosier's year, and followed for the next couple of years. We had small leadership symposiums. They were held in a little lodge up in Ames, and we had about 50 to 60 or 70 people show up to each of these symposiums, and we brought in great speakers from across the country, and as well as leaders from our state senate or the county or whatever there, to bring them in and speak to the membership about leadership. And in 2011, we decided to take the leadership symposium to a new level, where we moved it to the Des Moines Scottish Rite and give us the opportunity to show off one of our great facilities in Iowa, as well as an opportunity to bring in more great speakers. These are some of the topics that we've heard over the years in the past few years at the leadership symposiums. Last year at the leadership symposium, first thing we did, whether you showed up in a suit and tie or blue jeans or whatever you showed up in, we gave everybody a Masonic shirt and asked them to go put it on. And it was a great way for each Mason to truly be on the same level. And it was kind of nice because even the presenters at the conference were wearing the shirts, and they'd go take off their suit and tie and everything and come back down. And it made a real casual atmosphere, a real relaxed atmosphere. And the attendees loved the shirts. They were nice shirts, and they had a good time there with the presenters and everything that we had going on. Last year we had Brent Morris come in and give a talk. Michael Halloran was there, and a couple of other speakers. We had one of the state representatives in there that came in and talked about leadership. And Another thing we did, we included the Scottish Rite, York Rite, and the Blue Lodge, and we kind of had segues to where if you were more into the Scottish Rite or York Rite, you could break off and go to that direction, or if you're in the Blue Lodge, you wanted to go to the Blue Lodge direction. And we had so many different topics and probably about 9 different presenters that day. I think Don Mosier was one of the presenters that year, as well as, we had several from Iowa that year. And we had a flag, the opening ceremonies was a flag presentation given by the Scottish Rite members.
Craig,
Yes?
how much did it cost?
Okay, you want to know about how much it costs. Well, this is another plug. I had another member of the Grand Lodge office write a grant request, so this was no cost to the members of Iowa to attend the conference. So there was no cost associated with that. The Masonic Charitable Education Corporation, which is a 501c3 entity of the Grand Lodge of Iowa, gladly donated money to cover the cost of the leadership symposium, as well as the Scottish Rite Foundation. We got a grant from them to also help cover the cost. So yeah, no cost. Great food. You have to have great food at these events, and they'll keep coming back. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit when we get to the education seminars we had. But because of the grant proposals, we didn't have to put it in our budget, so it's one of those things that every year the Grand Master is trying to get a grant proposal written up so he can continue to have these events and take care of people like Chad Simpson. As most of you know, Chad is from Iowa, and he attended Simpson College. Well, it was a different name before Chad attended. After he left, they named the school after him.
Yeah, right.
How many attendees were there at your conference?
We had about 200 at the one in Des Moines last year, compared to 50, 40, 50, 60 in that area. So about 200 last year for that conference. And they come from all parts of the state, which was really nice. We also opened these events up to sister jurisdictions, anybody wanting to bring a few of their Leos over there to come see the events, they're more than welcome to. Just go through our Grand Secretary's office. We have our next leadership symposium set up here for June, and if you want to come out and see how it's run, we encourage you to do that. Last year we also started a new Iowa Conference on Masonic Education, and I could probably get Chad up here to talk about that. We've had him come out to Iowa the last 2 years to speak. We have that at our Grand Lodge Library and Museum, and which we consider the greatest museum in the world. I always hear that we're one of the top 3 or top 5 or something like that. In Iowa, we think it's the greatest in the world. We're going to have our conference there in 2014, so you guys will have the opportunity to visit our conference and take a tour of the facility at that time. We have a lot of stuff in our Grand Lodge library that the Grand Lodge of England doesn't even have. So this past year, Cliff Porter was one of the presenters, and Cliff, before he started speaking, he told us that he wanted to come back on another day and just take off all of his clothes and hang out in our library all day long. So, yeah. I didn't want to be around there then. We talk about good food. Woody's Smoke Shack has catered the event for the past couple years, and our library is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which kind of eastern Iowa, and Woody's Smoke Shack comes over from Des Moines, Iowa, which is probably about a 2-hour drive for him, but they come over and cater the event, and it's great food, and that a lot of people come back for the food, or Chad, one of the two, who came back for the food. And the conference structure is kind of set up, the way our building is set up, we have 2 simultaneous seminars going on at the same time. We'll have one speaker upstairs and one speaker downstairs, and we'll split everybody up. And the reason we have to do that is we have about 200 people show up for this conference, and getting 100 people in each of those rooms, it gets kind of warm in there every now and then. We have to work on our air conditioning and getting that set just right so we keep everybody comfortable. And once again, we require that you don't have to wear a suit. You can show up in a Masonic shirt and khakis or whatever you want to wear. And the presenters show up and they're always wearing the suits, but we appreciate that and appreciate what they do to come over there and be part of our conference. Do you want to expand a little bit on Chad and tell them your thoughts on that conference?
I could just quickly. Brethren, the challenge is that in all of our jurisdictions, we have brothers who are interested in Freemasonry. They may be experiencing that in their lodges, districts, and other places. They may not be. They may not be getting enough. And so what the Grand Lodge of Iowa has done is make this open to any Master Mason who wants to come and learn more. It's a really great symposium. The speakers go on for about 20 minutes. There's questions. And just like it's great to come to this conference to rub shoulders with other people interested in Masonic education, it's great for those just regular Master Masons to figure out, hey, wait a minute, I'm not the only one who cares about X, Y, and Z. And it's just really, it's an energetic day, and you have the oldest, crotchiest guy show up, and the youngest, brightest smile show up. I mean, it's the whole spectrum of Freemasonry. It's really interesting to have them come together. And in all of your jurisdictions, you have qualified speakers to present. And there's enough people out there, if you wanted to have a keynote speaker, like Cliff Porter or Michael Halgren or somebody like that, to come in, but then to use that local talent. And then it's interesting to inspire some of those newer Masons who say, hey, if I do some good research and come up with a good presentation, here's an opportunity for me to do. And we've been talking about doing this on the Grand Lodge of Ohio's Education Committee now because it's such a great opportunity. And there's enough cool, usable Masonic facilities out there in any of your jurisdictions that by not doing this, you just take one more step towards not educating the people in your state who want to do so. Sorry about that.
Oh, thanks, no, I appreciate it. Okay, Jim.
With that picture, I think it's important to point out that when that particular seminar was done, it also was a special invitation to Prince Hall Masonry Grand Lodge as well as their members.
Yes.
And there was a nice show up of that particular group, and it kind of again solidified those ties.
Yeah. And that's one thing we continue to work on in Iowa with our ties with our Prince Hall brothers, and I think that happens a lot through the Midwest area. So we're very proud of the fact. Actually, the Deputy Grand Master was one of our presenters in the first year, and he gave a nice historical perspective on Prince Hall Masonry. And since that time, he's got together with the Grand Lodge of Iowa, and they've rewritten a book and tried to make it a little bit nicer. And
Clark's History of Prince Hall Masonry.
Okay, Clark's History of Prince Hall Masonry. It's available through the Grand Lodge of Iowa. If you'd like a copy, give them a call or send them an email. And it's kind of a bad picture, but that's past Grandmaster Sturgeon. He was one of the presenters over there our first year from Pennsylvania. I don't want to screw that up. All right. Another thing we've kind of looked at in Iowa is our social networking. I'm sure you're going to hear a little bit more about that today, but our Grand Lodge website was getting kind of old and outdated, so last year we assigned a technology committee to work with the Grand Secretary's office to develop a new website. And in doing so, we decided that we needed a technology committee at the Grand Lodge level, so they voted last year at Grand Lodge to make that a permanent committee. And then another one that we developed last year was the Iowa Academy of Masonic Knowledge. And I kind of took the idea from the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania, and this year the Grand Master has taken it a little bit farther. That was also an ad hoc committee to develop a curriculum for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year process on developing education and different ways to do it. Instead of, you know, writing a paper, you can discuss it in lodge or whatever you want to do. But it was a way to incorporate a lot of the younger Masons who were looking for that particular avenue to get involved into the Masonic educational background. And we were leaving it strictly an online deal. This was not going to be something that you could do elsewhere. And that was our new website page. I know a lot of people are getting away from the website pages and going to Facebook pages now. In Iowa now, we have the Grand Master's Facebook page as well as the Grand Lodge of Iowa. And just this year, they've started about 2 months ago putting educational pieces up on the Facebook page for the Grand Lodge of Iowa. And we're getting a real great response from that. What were you, 25 when you had that photo taken?
No, I was not. You guys have aged me.
26.
Okay. See if it would give us, there you go. When we post, you can see how it jumps, it spikes every time we post.
Yeah, this,
Always.
yeah, it tells you about, this is kind of new on Facebook there. It keeps track of how you're doing with people looking at your page. You want to scroll down a little bit? And they also put up on the Facebook page when the meetings are and when the degree work's coming up. And we try to do that at the Grand Lodge. If a lodge is having degree work or anything going on, fundraiser or something, they'll put that up on our Facebook page. I noticed Masonic MSA is up on Facebook now, and I think most of the jurisdictions here are on Facebook. Some of you may be using Twitter. We're not using Twitter as of yet in Iowa. Our Grand Master, are you going to start that up this year? Who?
Twitter, isn't that something a bird does?
Yeah, that's something the bird does. But these are things, this is how younger Masons are finding us on the internet. They're finding us through Facebook, they're finding us through our web pages now. And once they find us, they go out and do their research on their own. And we're finding that there are a lot of guys that come in there and they get done, you know, what do you now desire? And they'll say light. And you'll be, okay. He's done a little research or somebody's coached him. But the younger people that want to join Masonry today, that's the way they're coming to your lodge. And we have to be prepared for that. And we weren't prepared for that in Iowa, so that's what we're trying to do now.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
You're doing this at the Grand Lodge level, you're creating these great portals, and this young person says, great, now they have to go to a local lodge to build a connection and work through the process. How are you helping the local lodges figure out how to build on this, rather than drop the ball?
At the local lodge, most of the local lodges in Iowa now are moving to Facebook. We're also, in the fall, we have Grand Master area meetings where we go out, the Grand Master goes out and preaches his program and what's going on. In the spring, we're just finishing up our spring neighborhood area meetings where our Lodge Service Committee, which is our education committee, goes out and has meetings all over the state with the brethren all over the state and try to help them with questions they have or anything like that. Our Lodge Service Committee also goes out to local lodges if they need speakers, if they need help with their lodge, if they're having any kinds of problems at all. there's always somebody there available to go out and visit a lodge. And there are other ways that we work with these programs we're developing usually come from the craft. We usually develop these programs from the feedback we get at these meetings, at our spring neighborhood area meetings. We ask the questions and they give us the answers. And we take the answers and start developing programs that way. All right, and this is about what I'm going to conclude with today, is a little bit of talk about our awards program. Our Ashler Award has been one of our most successful programs to date. We started that, Jim, when did we start the Ashler Award? About 5 or 6 years ago? 5 years ago. And I think we've had over 140 winners for that. And basically the Ashler Award is available to a person who's been a Mason up to 14 months. And once you're past that, you're not eligible to receive that. So the first 14 months, we have a checklist sheet there of things that you have to do. And what it does, it enrolls the brother into the lodge. It's like, hey, present an educational piece, go visit another lodge, learn a part in a ritual, get involved in the community. You know, there are all kinds of things that they can do on this. And it's also available on our website. You can go up to the Grand Lodge of Iowa website and download that. Our Master Builder is open to any Master Mason. And last year, what did we have last year, Tim?
About 30, I believe, correct?
About 30 last year. It's steadily climbing up and slowly catching the Ashler Award. For the Ashler Award, they receive a nice little patent and a shirt. For the Master Builder, they receive a nice jacket and a patent. And last year we developed the Golden Trowel Award, which was another award that was, I wanted to make this award so tough that not everybody could win it. And I think we had one winner last year. The criteria was that tough. So you have to have something that people want to strive for. Our Lodge of the Year program, we continue to have that each year. We usually get about 45 to 50 lodges participate in that program out of the close to 200 lodges in Iowa. What is it, 184?
283.
283, okay, 283, which is not a great percentage. The Lodge of the Year, the requirements are just the basic things that a lodge should be doing in their lodge, is what we decided. So those who go above and beyond that, we give the top 3 awards, the gold, silver, and bronze awards for the top 3 point getters. And we usually have about 10 lodges each year that really go after that and work their tails off. The Legends of Iowa Masonry was introduced a couple of years ago. And last year we took it to a new level where we had members submit somebody who they thought in their lodge was a Legend of Iowa Masonry. It didn't have to be a Grand Master. It didn't have to be a Grand Lodge officer. It didn't even have to be an officer. It could have been the guy that shows up in your lodge and sets the lodge room up for the last 50 years. You know, he's been there and he's done something nice, and you put a nice little write-up in there about him and send in a photo. And there were no, restrictions on becoming a Legend of Iowa Mason. And we had everybody from a past Grand Master who was nominated last year down to the guy who swept the floors in a lodge somewhere, but he'd been doing it for 50 or 60 years, and is a great way. It was a great connection between the Grand Lodge and the craft, and getting them involved and thinking that, hey, they do care about us. And that's what we were trying to do last year, is make that connection back with the local brother. The Plus One Award is an award for the lodge that increases their membership each year by at least one. We give away about 40 of those, 40, 50 of those.
Yeah, we have.
On average. The Two to Grow program started about 10 years ago, and that's every member who brings the top line signer on a petition where the brother completes all 3 degrees is eligible for the Two to Grow bid. We also each year, from the Ashler Award winners, the Grand Master picks a new Mason of the Year. we used to be Young Mason of the Year, but we switched it to New Mason of the Year to incorporate everybody, you know, for the guy who's coming in at 75 to the guy who's coming in at, you know, under 32. We also give away each year at Grand Lodge a first-time attendee award. Everybody that comes to Grand Lodge for the first time, their name goes in a hat, and we draw for basically all expenses paid trip back to Grand Lodge the next year, and we take care of that for them. The T.S. Parvin Award. T.S. Parvin was, well, one of the legends of Iowa Masonry, who was past Grand Secretary, past Grand Master. Was he governor of Iowa too, or no?
No, but he was SGIG and he was all Yorkite body.
Yeah, he was in charge of everything. So they named this award after him, and it goes to pretty much a Mason with distinction of service over the years. And you cannot have been a past Grand Lodge officer or a Grand Officer in the York Rite or Scottish Rite or anything like that. So.